you have an impossible act.
Oh, great.
But she's running a pup. She's already running, right? She's already the hero of the day.
Thank you, Freddie. Go find it.
Nice. Dog let over.
Pugs are the new nose work dog.
Now, is it okay if I talk over again? Please. So, what question we can ask since we have a working dog?
Not yet.
Oh, yeah. What? Is he settled enough? Now we know, right? Yes. How do we know we have a working dog? We find the first height. But there was no question, right, that he was coming in here taking a big overview of how I'm going to tear this thing apart. He was going, I want to see everything that's happening in here, and I'll make some decisions in a minute. Feel backing up in a little way that says I just blur. Yes. Now it doesn't matter because the dog's not going to listen to that, but it is a soft. It can be an error that with a soft dog, pull the dog off. Really nice hair. See how smooth she looks? She's got a little turbo, and she is just pivoting and moving nicely, and it's really soft. Nice. Feel that back up? I want to call attention to it because that's the behavior that leads out of you. You have a natural desire to be backing up. And so I want to create a file on that so that you can find out information. Now, pretty significant handler takeover there. Yes. And it was to manage that. But I didn't correct myself. I'm calling finish. Keep working. And we'll talk about that next call. Rotate it. Rotate it. All up. All up. Pull. Nice catch. Yep. Nice job. So I'm glad you called finish, even though it wasn't the right call, because it gives us an opportunity to talk about why it wasn't the right call.
Good boy,
Because in terms, that was fantastic.
Good job.
Fantastic.
I'll keep
In
videoing
terms
from the
of
back.
coverage, you had really get out of the sun. We're gonna be in the sun all day. No, you don't have to.
No, I need to really.
I want we got to protect ourselves today. So, in terms of coverage, did she have complete coverage in terms of had we been everywhere? Yes. I think she had been. She'd been everywhere. Yep. So, in terms of did we get in the zones we needed to get into? Yes, we did. Why was it the wrong call? Because when her dog was in this zone, he was working that tight. And because his imagination, when he was in this area, was fixated on that elevated height in the back, which is the height that most dogs are going to pick off first. It is going to be the habit. Because he was interested in the overlaying hide, the coverage that we had in this area wasn't true. Because his head was there. And so when I talk about how do we know we have a working dog, how do we start coverage? In my opinion, the safest way to start evaluating coverage is at the first height, the first found height. Because that's the height that was compelling the dog forward. So for my coverage rules, my coverage overview starts there.
So that's like your first
That's my mental threshold for spatial coverage. We know we were effective and getting the job done there. And so now I'm going to stay in until we have worked our way back there. This would be considered a coverage gap to me because our coverage jumped there. It was a gorgeous search.
So when he went back to the hive, trying to get out of the found it,
Yep.
because it stopped him.
Yeah.
And I know it stopped him dead, and that's why I called finish. We figured if there were more, he would have started working on his own again.
Yeah, and that's the peril of using. So
So how do I handle that?
I'll answer that, but I'll say something that sounds harsh that isn't meant to be harsh. The peril of calling finish on an error, because going back to a found hide, we would consider an error. The peril of calling finish on an error means that it stops the whole show, and it's almost like a little bit of a defeatist thing, because you're calling finish when the dog commits a mistake you didn't expect it to make. And so we're not evaluating the totality of the search. We're using this one piece of evidence to make that call. I used to do it. If my dog returned to a found hide, it meant it was clear. But the dogs don't know the coverage area, and I would rather train the dog not to return to the found hide. So in searches, like in an NW3 right now, you're gonna do what you did, and you're gonna manage that hide. But then I'm gonna go back into training and solve it. So for me, the key component on solving a dog that returns to a found hide is we have to watch how we send them off of the found hide. Everyone says that they have either a touch or a verbal cue that moves the dog on, and almost no one actually has that. Almost everybody's actual cue is find more. It's a directional, and it's a movement. Almost everybody says they have a find more or a find more, and almost no one does. Almost everybody's body drifts the dog in a direction. If our body drifts the dog in a direction, we're blocking learning, because we're blocking the dog's ability to pick the next path. So they learn to be passive on a found hide, because you're going to set a direction anyway. And when you're setting a direction on known hides, how often do you set an error? We never know there's two hides and we step this way. Unless we're doing specific proof work, we almost always step in the direction that we want the dog to go. So I'd like to get rid of that. Find more. So the first part is stop moving, so that the dog takes control of that movement instead of the handler. And as a transition, what I will do is feed, find more, and I just pull that hide. If they still bang on that hide, I just wait. And if I get frustrated, I just quit. And then what I'll do is I'll either set sock puzzles or food bowls with odor and food, and teach it as a separate skill on sock searches or on food bowl searches, because most dogs are pretty willing to move on to a new sock, or they're very willing to move on to the food bowls. As long as the handler stays still, we can splice that piece out and get it remedied. In my dog world, when I'm running hides, I have control that I have a right to touch. If my dog returns to a found hide, I don't try and prevent it at all. I don't care that they go back, I just do nothing. But if the dog asks for payment or becomes destructive, I just go pull the hide and I put it in my pocket. It's a little bit of a punisher, dogs don't like that. But when I just take control of the hide and wait, dog finds the next line. And none of this is a fix that works in an hour, but this is a fix that over time becomes a seamless look. Does that answer that piece? And yeah, and the going back to found hides and not releasing is incredibly important for this level, because we lose too much important time re-engaging with dead hides. We can't afford it. And the other place where we lose on it is if the dog can't take an informed line off of a found hide, we are also wasting time leading the dog in the wrong direction. So there's two time penalties, and I want to get rid of both of them. The other thing is if we have to manage the found hides, every management move we do is a huge hostile takeover of the search. Find more. Don't go there. I mean, everything we do to prevent that error is heavy. Even if it has a pleasant veneer, it's still a complete takeover of the search. And it's an unnecessary toggle if we can splice it out. The thing I like about the no return to found hide work is this living room work. It can be 95 degrees outside, we can do this skill in our living room. Yeah,